Thank you for viewing this innovation vlog brought to you by the Prosecutors Center for Excellence. My name is Sophia Roach, and I'm joined by Grace Liu, who is the Director of Prevention and Intervention Services for the San Diego County District Attorney's Office. She's here to tell us today about an innovative application that the office developed, which helps increase cultural competence for law enforcement. Starting out, can you tell us a little bit about the population of San Diego, especially new immigrant communities, and how they have kind of evolved over time?
Absolutely. So San Diego County, we have about 3.3 million people. It's the second most populous county of California's 58 counties, and we're the fifth largest county in the United States. And so we have, many people and many people of diverse backgrounds. About a fifth of our population here in San Diego County is immigrants, and that includes refugees. Just last year, we welcomed almost 4,000 refugees, and many of them are our top three countries are Afghanistan, Haiti, and Syria. But even beyond that, we have many immigrants from all over the world. And so we have a lot of diversity here. We have more than 68 different languages spoken in the county. And so it's fun.
Now, I would imagine that with the influx of new immigrants who are coming from varied cultures, that can present some challenges in a law enforcement setting. What have you seen, and how has San Diego kind of responded to that in this kind of unique, accessible way?
Yeah, definitely. So just to back up a little bit. So with our district attorney's office, we have an interfaith advisory board, which are faith leaders throughout the county that represent different faiths. And this idea really came from our faith leaders who were seeing in the community that there were just these interactions between community members and law enforcement that just could go a little better. And a lot of it started from either miscommunication or misunderstandings, or just those little nuances, in cultures that maybe our law enforcement officers were missing a little bit, because we understand, with our law enforcement partners, it's a very dangerous job. Safety is number one, safety for the community, safety for themselves. I think the number one thing that the community and our law enforcement officers feel is that, we all want to go home tonight. And so we just started thinking, well, how can we make that happen? And how do we make something accessible to our law enforcement partners that they can easily work through and can review when they're interacting with our diverse communities, so that, some of these nuances aren't getting missed. And so that's how we went to the cultural awareness mobile app.
So tell us a little bit about the application, how it was developed, and the types of information that it generates.
Yeah, absolutely. So once again, we really drew upon our faith leaders, and they connected us with different communities in San Diego County. And so whoever we were able to meet with, we had a focus group, and we asked the same questions to every focus group, related to traditions and beliefs, greetings, and what to do when you visit a household. And also we asked them about their perceptions of law enforcement and their past experiences of law enforcement, because many of our folks in San Diego County, have come from countries where law enforcement may have been an entity that they did not have a positive experience with them, and so that can kind of affect their perspective here. And so for a law enforcement officer to know that going into a household where there may be some history there, I think would be helpful. But really, I think the greetings part is really important. And visiting that household. So of course, all the information in here it's not a blanket statement. These statements came directly from these focus groups, and they're specific to, the individuals that participated. But we think that it is broad enough in the perspective that it could at least cover most of, what would be respectful and what's not respectful, so that situations do not de-escalate.
And I noticed that in the communities that you cover, it's not just immigrant communities, but also communities that are part of the founding of this country, either especially in California, we have a huge Mexican derived population, but that actually originated in California, not
Yeah.
in some other place. Why did you take care to also address some of those populations in addition to the immigrant communities?
I mean, just understanding that those populations are the ones that are having the most interaction with law enforcement in our communities. And so we definitely wanted to include their voices and their perspective.
Now, as a result of building this app, how have you been able to roll it out to the law enforcement? What's their response been?
Yeah, so we have been able to integrate it into our de-escalation trainings that our office, the Bureau of Investigation, provides to our law enforcement partners here in San Diego County. And then I would say our biggest ambassadors have been our Interfaith Advisory Board members themselves. I know, like with the Imam, he is over the San Diego Islamic Center, and whenever he has even FBI agents come through or any law enforcement partners come through for a training, he shares about the app. And so it's really been, word of mouth and incorporating it into these trainings.
And what was the community response like, not just to the developed application, but also to the process?
Yeah, I think they, of course, when we first went in, a few of the focus groups, they were very hesitant and weary, and understandably so. But I think once we started talking and explaining what this was for, I think they felt very valued and heard, and that was really nice to experience that, in those focus groups. And I hope that more of our law enforcement partners take advantage of this so that they can hear more of our community's voices and perspectives.
Now, I noticed in looking through the app, I saw what I identified as de-escalation tactics. Were they initially intended to be de-escalation tactics, or do they have some other origin?
I think it just naturally came about, because I think it's important to know that, the community is not trying to be difficult. They're not trying to escalate things either. And so I think putting that sort of language in there, and I'll say, all the language in the app came directly from these focus groups and from the community members. And so I think that's really encouraging for the law enforcement officers to see too, that, oh, okay, you're trying to de-escalate as well. And so, yeah, I think it just kind of naturally happened that way.
Now, this application, how does one use it? I mean, how would a law enforcement officer access it?
Yeah, so they can download it on their phones. We also have a mobile web page that they can, save on their phone as a page. And they could just go through each of the communities. We're hoping that law enforcement officers will use it, of course, in non-emergency situations. We understand that in emergency situations, you have to go protocol and do what you have to do, and everyone has to be safe. But we're hoping this kind of a tool can be used when, probation officers do a home visit to a youth and, their family member, or maybe a sheriff's deputy is going out and, investigating somewhere, and they know that this family is a certain background. And we know that the list of communities is not complete either. So we're constantly updating, we're constantly adding to it. And that's what's also been great about community feedback, is they'll look at it and say, hey, but I'm not in here. And what about this community? And so we welcome that. And so we've been adding on to it, as we grow.
And this application is actually available for anybody in the public. They
Absolutely.
look it up on their phone app index. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
Okay. And with regard to the application, we have talked a lot about its use for law enforcement. Do you think it could also be useful for prosecutors and prosecution employees who may be having contact with one of these communities as victims or witnesses?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think it would hurt, because a lot of times we may be interacting in a way that we think is respectful and we have all the best intent, but if they're not receiving it that way because of their own background and perspective, then we're really missing the point. And so it could be a way, I think, to just increase that connection.
Now, any other lessons learned or advice that you might have if somebody wanted to either adopt the use of this application or, putting it together technically? Anything you'd like to share?
I think gathering the information is important. The modality is maybe not as important. I think this could be a web page that, because I'm sure most offices have their own website. So if people could even just have the information on a website, and you encourage folks to save that web page on their favorites or bookmark it, then I still think it could be useful. Because I know, the mobile app design and maintaining it is, it can be pricey. And I know a lot of jurisdictions might not have that in their budget, but I think like even having a web page or having little placards or, flashcards or something like that could still work too, as long as the information gathered comes from the community. I think that's what makes it really powerful, is that instead of us doing research and making generalized statements, we really went out to the community and took their exact words and put it into this app. So I think that's what makes it a bit more real and more practical.
Well, I want to thank you for sharing this innovation with us, and thank you to our viewers. If you would like to share an innovation, please contact PCE directly. And the email address is contact PCE at pceinc.org. Thank you again.
Thank you.